Assassin's Creed Shadows has been stirring quite some controversy lately, mainly due to the choice of making the protagonists not what you expect them to be. AC Shadows is set in feudal Japan, somewhere between 1579 to 1581, following two protagonists. One is a woman shinobi named Naoe, and a man shrouded in mystery, barely existing in any historical records, Yasuke, a retainer for Oda Nobunaga. Where we are now used to seeing a traditional Japanese character in mainstream media, whether it's anime, advertising, games, or music we listen to, Ubisoft has taken a different approach and made one of the protagonists the first man of African descent recorded in the Japanese historical documents. While we do not know much about him, multiple letters sent by Jesuit missionaries mention the man of African roots, accompanying a Jesuit missionary named Alessandro Valignano. In 1581, they traveled to Kyoto to meet Oda Nobunaga, the most powerful warlord in Japan, hoping to gain his support for their missionary work. Yasuke's arrival created a huge stir in Kyoto. People were so eager to see him that they caused a riot, leading to injuries and even deaths, according to records. Nobunaga, curious about Yasuke, initially thought his dark skin was painted on. He had him wash himself to prove it was natural. Yasuke's strong physique and remarkable strength fascinated the warlord, who then welcomed him into his service as a retainer, providing him with a sword and a house. Alright, we understand that Yasuke existed and served Oda Nobunaga, but why did Ubisoft, out of all historical figures, chose a man of African descent in a game centered around Japan's feudal wars and political intrigue? While we know this is not Ubisoft's first rodeo into creating a controversy, nobody expected them to center the game around a character that stood out like a sore thumb in a game about assassins, those who walk in the shadows. Yasuke is meant to be seen, mocked, and not accepted. He can't even do stealth missions in AC, as he's just too big. That's why in AC Shadows we have two different approaches to missions. You either play as Noe and be stealthy, or go guns blazing into a mission as Yasuke. Personally, I think the point of choosing Yasuke as the protagonist is not to bring diversity into the cast, especially when we talk about feudal Japan. It is to create controversy. We could have gotten another version of Ghost of Tsushima, but Ubisoft has forgotten how to create inspiring, emotionally intellectual stories. While we still reminisce about the story of Ezio or Edward from Black Flag, Ubisoft has lost the ability to write influential stories. Their objective is to focus on things that would grasp someone's attention for not the right reasons sometimes. Shadows is still going to have a decent plotline, and because it's a samurai and Japan, everyone will glaze it even more than it has to be. Ubisoft essentially shoved aside a heroic male lead character of Asian descent in lieu of a black one. Now, I'm not against Yasuke being in the game. He could have been maybe a great supporting character, but I strongly hope that this game by a Western publisher would have simply used a Japanese male lead character instead. Positive, strong Asian male portrayals are still lacking in Western media. This could have been Ubisoft's chance to buck the trend, but here we are. Yes, Naoa is the other playable character, but Asian females are overrepresented in Western media in comparison to Asian men. And there is no reason Shadows has to have two protagonists. Yasuke is just a standard action brute hero that cuts down enemies by force, and that's it. The extended gameplay showcased that Naoe can fight groups of enemies, and if she can tackle the game from both a stealthy and an open approach, then it questions why Yasuke is even in the game at all. Secondly, it still is the problem of wokeness being instilled into games. It's not the first and not the last piece of media being influenced by political ideologies or cultural discrepancies. Globalization has given us a lot of good in the world, but lately every piece of media has to go through a vibe check. It has to be politically correct, include different sexual orientations, ethnicities, religious agendas. But if we're taking the time period of feudal Japan, that anyone besides a narrow-eyed white-skinned person was seen as a monster, an animal, then tell the story of feudal Japan. On the other hand, the gameplay is plain old Assassin's Creed with some new quirky gameplay mechanics. Multiple YouTubers attended a behind-doors shadow showcase recently, where more gameplay was shown with intricate details, and they explained why they chose both of those protagonists in their game. However, I've noticed that none of them were very surprised. They mentioned the lighting system was overhauled, the parkour looked much better compared to Valhalla and Odyssey, but that is it. When it comes to Ubisoft, they tend to half-ass their games. Whether it's the fault of not having enough time or other obstacles in the way. It's been a decade since we've seen a decent game come from Ubisoft's development teams. We want Shadows to be successful, not for Ubisoft's sake, as eventually it will be bought out by Microsoft or someone bigger from China maybe, but for Assassin's Creed's sake. We want the IP to live on, to go back into the times where it was actually good. However, Ubisoft has given up in trying for whatever internal reasons they have, and that really reflects on their product. I see Shadows will be just another over-marketed, overhyped Ubisoft game in a long line of Assassin's Creed games. In the end, Assassin's Creed is historical fiction. We all know that. I mean, last few games, we were literally fighting mythological gods. However, Ubisoft has forgotten what AC really is. A down-to-earth historical fiction game that tells the story of revenge, redemption, freedom, conflict, and identity. Sure, they still tell these stories, but what we expect from Assassin's Creed is an assassin that is out to get the Templars. When we all asked to give us back the original AC, the AC1 and the Brotherhood and the Ezio era, and then you gave us Mirage. That was quite close to what we asked. It still had superpowers that I suppose we cannot avoid anymore because that's what Assassin's Creed is these days. But we meant about not trying to be politically correct or inserting fuck ton of wokeness into your games. Stop trying to make the game into a more superpower-ish RPG games that we've been getting the past couple of years. And to you, buyer, remember, never pre-order. Alright, I'm going. Jeez, don't need to push.